This week on Scam School, we learn how to lie. You liar! You lying liar who lies! This episode of Scam School brought to you by GoDaddy and Netflix. Go to www.netflix.com/scamschool for your free trial membership. Welcome to the only show that's less honest than your tax returns. Scam School, the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. I'm your host, Brian Brushwood, and this is a subject I have wanted to cover since day one of Scam School. It's finally happening. We are starting a two-part interview with Clark Freshman, professor of law and expert in facial expressions and lying. Oh my God, you have no idea how excited I am to cover this topic finally. We are here with none other than Clark Freshman, professor of law and what? Lie detection? Like what's your exact category?
Professor of law. We're all professors of law.
Awesome. Okay.
No, nothing else.
Okay, but you are an expert in
Negotiation and lie detection and emotion.
Okay, and so you're from University of California, Hastings, right?
Exactly.
So originally I put out to Twitter, I said, I'm looking for someone who's the best at lie detection, who happens to be maybe in the Northern California area. It turns out you're right in our backyard, and this worked out so perfect. Tell me about what you do.
Well, so what I do is I mostly teach negotiation in a law school. And a few years ago, I started studying, about a decade ago, emotion and negotiation. And then about 5-6 years ago, moved that into telling whether people are lying during negotiation and telling whether the techniques you're using, the pitches you're using, are actually working. So it's the same thing selling cars as trying to persuade a judge, as trying to pick up someone in a bar. It's all the same of figuring out where is their traction in what you're saying.
What is the first thing we should know in negotiation and figuring out who's lying?
Well, a couple places you could start. The first way, I would say, is become aware of everyone's baseline. Part of that will be the voice. So your voice is relatively loud, and your voice
I prefer energetic.
is relatively fast. My voice is relatively fast. So let's take a look at voice. We figure out what somebody's baseline is, and then we see when they're acting differently from their baseline. That tells us something is going on. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're lying. Could be that they're lying. Could be that they're more interested. We don't know. Face is another one. So yours, a relatively animated face from what I can tell right now. You're now smiling from the lower part of your face. So that is not a hit. So right now, you're not sincerely happy. You're acting polite, but there's no movement in the upper part of your face. Now you just got some movement in the upper part of your face. So now it's actually moving. So these muscles here that push up your cheekbones,
okay,
these are the ones that reveal there's a sincere smile as opposed to a flight-attendant smile, where they're smiling like that.
Wow.
Doesn't mean they're faking it, right? So we live in a society of politeness. So people do these kind of deference smiles or politeness smiles, and they're not being fake. They're just not felt smiles. It's not felt happiness. Just another accessory, and your nod right there. Some people are nodders, some people are not nodders. And let's suppose we're talking,
right,
and you're nodding all along, and then I say something about, God, Sarah Palin, what a bitch. And you stop nodding at that point.
Okay,
that might
all right.
tell you, could be a Republican, could be brain dead. We
right.
don't know at that point. We just know that there's something different about the Sarah Palin. I talk with my hands. Some people don't. If I stop talking with my hands, that's a soft spot. We want to investigate that. Why is that? Could be that I'm stopping talking with my hands because I'm having to think harder. Well, that could be because you've asked me something embarrassing.
Okay.
Why did your last relationship end? I'm embarrassed, I'm not lying, but I'm trying to figure out what am I going to share with you. But that is also a clue of deception. It doesn't mean the person is lying, but when they stop talking with their hands, they usually do. Soft spot could be that they're lying. We've got voice, we've got talking with their hands, we've got their face, then we've got verbal style. So far, I said bitch. So that means that I speak relatively informally. If I started speaking relatively formally, that would be a problem. If you started in the middle of one of your episodes saying, well, whereas this is what you said last time, I'm noticing a certain inconsistency, indeed a certain postmodern milieu of inconsistency,
right.
Then we might think, ooh, that's inconsistent with Brian's usual verbal
Brian
style.
sounds smart today. Who is this guy?
Right, who is that guy? So, great. So now you did like, right, so you changed your voice a little bit there, you're talking more deeply. You just started drinking. So that's a little bit of a clue that's off these 5 things. But it can also fit within baseline. But for a normal person who has better things to do with their time, when they start reaching for the water, or they cough, or they swallow,
right.
This is a sign of arousal. And arousal could be, right, if they're sexually aroused, but it
Right.
could also be the stress response has kicked in. That's a sign that I'm making the person uncomfortable. I'm trying to sell you something. I'm
Right.
trying to get you to take one of my workshops in lie detection, and you start doing that. I would think, ooh, this person is not so comfortable. Let me try something else. Now, the last technique besides verbal style is verbal content. Another example of verbal content changing is you stay on topic for all the others, but then for one, you start meandering around. It reminds you of something.
So let's say the conversation seems to be angling towards a certain direction, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it takes
switch,
a side.
right.
Yeah. Just to recap, the baseline, the things you got to pay attention to. There was the voice.
Voice was number one we talked about.
Right.
So we've got the face is the second one. That becomes very important on its own. We've got verbal style. We've got body movements. And we've got verbal content. Those are the 5 basic ones that we're looking
And
at.
basically, establishing a baseline just means paying attention and making a mental note of what seems to be what they do naturally in all of those 5 categories.
Yes, that's right. And some of them count more than others.
All right, by now you know that GoDaddy's been sponsoring Scam School since day one. Of course you know. They have 99.9% uptime. They've got 24/7 support. They have free access to their hosting connection full of over 30 free applications to help you get the most from your hosting plan and your website. And most importantly, you can use GoDaddy's free iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry app to order right from your phone, manage your current domains, and more. Hell, I did it from the airport just the other day. Head on over to revision3.com/GoDaddy for all of the amazing GoDaddy deals. And in fact, why don't you go ahead and try out some other scam codes? You don't always have to do Scam 10. You can do Scam 9 and get $5 off of any order of $30 or more. Try that one for a change. Head on over to GoDaddy and get your piece of the internet.
Let's take a look at facial expressions. So facial expressions, much more specific. So facial expressions, there are 7 facial expressions that have a universal meaning across cultures. The person I do a lot of research with, Paul Ekman, the person who's the inspiration for the TV show Lie to Me, the scientific advisor for it, he studied this in Papua New Guinea years ago when Papua New Guinea had no contact with the West. He studied it in blind individuals who've never seen these expressions. They show up the same. So one of them, for example, the easiest one to learn is contempt. Now, contempt is a nightmare.
Right.
If you're scamming on someone at a bar, they show contempt, just move on. Picture Dick Cheney. You guys started to do it right there. It's an asymmetrical smile. It's a smile on one side of your face. You did a subtle expression of contempt right before that. If you slowed it down, that would be exactly what it was.
They're gonna do that. They're gonna go back and capture it.
That's
I hate you
exactly what it was.
guys.
You just slightly moved aside. So this is contempt.
Okay. Okay, so
Just like that. That's exactly right. Sometimes it's on the left, sometimes that's on the right. If you look at Dick Cheney,
now
if you look at George Bush, do it all the time.
So contempt, the connotation to me is that, you know, it's this sheer hatred for the person, but that's not necessarily what you mean
Not
by
necessarily, no,
contempt.
not hatred. Contempt could be, at one extreme, it could be a sense of moral superiority. So you might be talking to someone in San Francisco and you say, what do you think of Sarah Palin? And they show contempt. You might be talking to Sarah Palin and say, what do you think of same-sex marriage?
Right.
And she shows contempt. So it can be a moral quality of derision.
Okay.
It can be a sense of being better than. For some people, it's just skepticism.
Now, what's the difference between
So
disgust and
contempt is just this very simple muscle. Disgust is pretty complicated. Disgust at its extreme is everything moves towards the middle, like this.
Okay.
So
Like you
imagine your
smelled
most-
something
yeah,
bad.
if you smelled something bad. What's your least favorite food? Brussels sprouts.
I actually
Carrots.
love vegetables,
Love
but you know
Brussels
what?
sprouts,
You know what?
carrots,
You know I can't
sour milk.
stand.
Have you ever had sour milk? You
Oh
ever had
yeah.
food poisoning?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
did
okay,
it. I
so
did it
right.
totally instinctively.
So, yes, you did it like
Yeah.
that. So many people, and so here's the sort of the third lesson. You got the soft spots from the deviations from baseline. The expressions at their extreme would be something like this.
Right.
But people try to conceal them, so often all you'll see is the expression that's slight, as you did with the contempt, was just a slight
Yeah.
something going on, or it happens very quickly. So you might get disgust, and all you would see is the wrinkling of the nose, but in slow motion, you would see the whole face was like that. And people don't notice it, because what they're doing is they're looking in the wrong place.
Right.
So let's say you're trying to figure out, you're trying to be nice to me. Where are you going to be looking at on my face?
Well, normally in your eyes.
Right, you're
yeah.
looking in my eyes, and it's a total waste of your time.
Really?
Yeah, the eyes are a total waste of your time. On the other hand, the eyebrows, very interesting. So the eyebrows come down and together like
Right.
that. That on its own is just interest.
Right,
So
right.
it could just be when I was talking to your producer, I said something to her, and she said, well, would you be willing to do this? And I said, no, and she did this. And I couldn't tell, was she angry or was she just thinking, oh shit, what am I going to do instead?
Right.
So that could just be I'm thinking about it. That's interesting, because suppose you're talking to somebody, it's like, well, what about if we do this? And it could be going to a restaurant, could be going to a certain country for vacation, could be whatever.
Right.
And they do that. They're not necessarily angry, but they're having to think about it. If the eyes glare, if the eyes open wider, or sometimes they get tighter. Some
Right.
people do that. The lower eyelids get tight and the eyebrows go down. That can be anger. And you want to notice that. Talk about the pursed lips with that, with the men often, we try to interview women.
Right.
That can be the involuntarily rolling under the lips. Very hard to do
Yeah.
voluntarily, but it's a very reliable sign the person's starting to get angry.
You guys know by now just how great Netflix is. You know they deliver movies directly to your home, saving you time, money, and hassle. And as an unlimited member, you get DVDs by mail in about 1 business day. But way better than that, you can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streaming directly to your PC, Mac, or right to your TV on a Netflix-ready device like your Xbox, PS3, Nintendo Wii console. You watch as many movies as you want. Shipping is always free, and there's never any late fees or due dates. So keep the movies as long as you like. DVDs by mail, plus instantly right to your TV. Get unlimited movies 2 ways for only $8.99 a month. And as a new member, as a Scam School viewer, you could get a free trial membership. So head on over to netflix.com/scamschool and sign up now. Not only will you be getting the sweetest service in all of movie history, but you'll be keeping us in business.
All right, so talking about eyes, I was always under the impression that you wanted to look in somebody's eyes to show that you were paying attention to them, and it was like a courtesy thing, like I'm paying attention to you. But I have noticed that when I'm talking, I'm not comfortable talking only into someone's eyes. I make sure to look away as I try to gather my thoughts and then deliver them a piece at a time. But you're saying it's okay to have a conversation and not be looking at someone's eyes?
Oh, 2 different things. So one is politeness. Yes, you do want to be looking at people's eyes in certain cultures. That's where there's a lot of cultural variation. But if you watch videos, if you just watch your friends more aware, you'll notice people do look away a fair amount. Now, when they look away, that turns out to be a clue. It doesn't mean they're lying. It's this big movement, so I just looked up and to the right. Some people would tell you, oh, up and to the right, if he's right-handed, he's lying. If he's left-handed, he's not lying. That turns out by a bunch of published studies not to be true.
Thank you
Doesn't
for
matter
saying
where
that.
you look. But
because
here's
I
a
hear
big
that
tip.
all the time, and I'm like, that sounds like such pseudoscience
Yeah, it's
to me.
totally pseudoscience. It is true that when you're looking up, you're more likely to be retrieving information or trying to gather your thoughts. Some people look down, some people look up, some people look to the side. Let's suppose I say to you a series of questions. So I say, what year were you born in?
1975.
Okay, so you looked up slightly for that. Probably that was just because you're wondering where I'm going with that. It doesn't mean that you're lying, but it does mean that it's a change from baseline. You're thinking about something. So sometimes your birth year, sometimes you think you should know that. If I said, where were you born? Where were you born?
Oh, Fountain Valley, California.
And what's your mother's first name?
Victoria.
And what's your father's first name?
Alan.
And what's your mother's middle name?
Wait, are you asking for my mother's maiden name? Where is this
Right,
headed?
I know,
Susan.
right.
Yeah.
So you get your security clearance, right. So you were looking up a little bit and you were trying actually your eyes, if you were to roll this back over in slow motion, your eyes started to look up and then you would pull them back
Well,
down.
and I was
which
catching
is
myself.
actually more of a soft spot than you're just looking up. Because what that tells me is both that you're having to think and you're trying not to let me know that you're trying to think.
And that's exactly what it is, and it's a little bit weird because we know the cameras are on and we know that I'm trying to play a certain role as host to the show, but at the same time, I'm also trying to be genuine, and it's creating this weird double bind where I'm trying to be natural but also trying to be perfectly fake.
Right, and so you're moving back and forth. And so for you, in this kind of a context, let's suppose that I saw what we'll call a micro-expression, so a very fast, fleeting emotion. Ordinarily, I'd have to say, wow, that could be a clue that the person's lying. Why is he showing? 2 of the big ones are disgust and fear. But you might be showing fear not because you're afraid that I'll catch you lying, but you're afraid that you'll look bad. You're afraid that you're not maintaining some image that you want to maintain. So ordinarily that micro expression, that micro movement of your eyes, that would be very suspicious. But because I know you're engaging in impression management, no big deal.
Right.
So same thing if you're interviewing somebody for a job or you're out in
Where they
first
know they're
date,
trying to put on
they're
their best
trying-
face and-
That's going to be happening all the time. That's going to be happening.
Now, we're out of time for this episode, but don't worry, you'll get the second mind-blowing half of Clark's interview coming up soon. In the meantime, let us know what you liked, and more importantly, what you'd like to see in future episodes of Scam School by posting them at the boards at scamschool.tv, where you can see all of our episodes right back to episode 1. If you want to suggest your favorite bar scam or trick, you can write me directly at brian@revision3.com. If you're doing the Twitter thing, follow the show at twitter.com/scamschool or follow me personally at twitter.com/schwood. Coming up soon, we'll have the rest of Clark's interview where he catches me lying on a very personal matter. It's too personal. It's for me to know, not you.